So what's going on, everyone? I'm out here in California with Toyota, driving the all-new Toyota Tacoma in all of its flavors. And you might have seen some of these videos already, so I won't waste your time going on about the new Toyota Tacoma and its sort of general details. I'm here talking about some of the specific models, namely things like the PreRunner. So this is the TRD PreRunner, and if you don't know what sets the PreRunner apart from some of its Toyota Tacoma brethren, well, stick around because we're going to look at some of the unique details that make a PreRunner a PreRunner, so you understand what's a Tacoma PreRunner. All right, so first of all, the powertrain. The powertrain is the iForce engine. So you get the iForce 278 horsepower, 317 pound-feet of torque mated to an 8-speed automatic transmission. Now, I'm filming on my phone in this sort of low-key way. If you're, a channel regular, you know this is not how I normally do things because the weather has been really dodgy. We're out in California, which is supposed to be beautiful, and it's been rainy and windy and pretty terrible today. So we're just kind of making do. So, that explains this. But anyway, I'm in the hills here, and one of the things that I mentioned in the driving portion is that the PreRunner, if you don't know, it's got a lifted suspension, it's got leaf springs, it's got a locking rear diff. We'll get into more of that in a second, but it rides like pretty well. But the 8-speed automatic, guys, this is the thing that probably for every Tacoma that I've driven, the 8-speed automatic is a million times better than the old 6-speed automatic. It's just awesome. I did have a chance to drive a manual TRD Off-Road. If you haven't seen that video, go check that out. That was loads of fun, and the manual transmission is quite good. It's a lot of fun to drive, especially off-road. But the 8-speed automatic, I cannot say enough good things about that paired with this powertrain. Now, let's talk about some of that PreRunner specific hardware, okay? So the PreRunner gets the iForce engine, not the iForce Max, gets the 8-speed automatic transmission, has a TRD suspension lift, it has the rear leaf springs with the rear locker, but it's 2-wheel drive. And this is what makes the PreRunner sort of interesting. It's got all of these 4-wheel drive cues, right? It kind of resembles the TRD Off-Road. You got the all-terrain tires, you got the black TRD wheels. It has all of that kind of visual flair, but it's just a 2-wheel drive truck. It's sort of meant for hooliganism, I guess, like that, the way it bounces around and yet you still have the rear locker. It's actually kind of fun to drive. Is it as refined to drive? Copper, it's going in search of somebody. Someone's committing crimes out there. Is it as, refined to drive as the TRD Sport that I had earlier? No, it's not. Rush hour on Mulholland, apparently. It doesn't ride quite as refined, but it is a lot of fun. And up here in the mountains, really a chance to put it to the test. So, when I cut to the driving portion here, keep that in mind that I just got out of a TRD Sport, which is a little bit more buttoned down. It has that rear multi-link, whereas this is on the leaf springs. So I'm in the Toyota Tacoma PreRunner, all right? I'm driving the PreRunner, and if you don't know what the PreRunner is, it's sort of this mishmash of options. So the PreRunner is a 2-wheel drive Toyota Tacoma. I have the regular iForce engine, so 317 pound-feet of torque, but I have a rear locking differential and I have leaf springs. So all the TRDs get the multi-link coil springs. This one has the leaf springs with a locking rear diff, but it's only 2-wheel drive. And the idea here is that the PreRunner's kind of a bit of a hoonigan, kind of like for sandy desert running where you're not necessarily going to be rock crawling or something. I get it, right? I get it, but let me tell you something right away. I jumped in the seat of this and I took it out, and I just was sitting in the TRD Sport model Toyota Tacoma. And there's an immediate difference. That TRD Sport model was definitely a little bit more firm and planted out here on these mountain roads. And this thing, you feel that rear end jittering and it's kind of skittering a little bit more over the pavement, much like the SR. I just had the Tacoma SR this morning. So that's sort of your ultra base model Tacoma, your sort of work truck, right? And this thing feels like that did. It definitely feels light and lively, I'm not sure if me personally, if I would want that in a Toyota Tacoma, but from a driving standpoint, that's what sticks out to me. Now I put it in sport mode because that seemed appropriate for the PreRunner. That kind of seemed like what I should do. So I put it in sport mode and sharpened up the throttle, and I've been mashing it a little bit here and there, and it's good fun. 317 pound-feet of torque, and that turbo is making the elevation totally unnoticeable. But I just don't know from a driving standpoint. If I wanted a two-wheel drive truck, I'd probably just get the TRD Sport. But, you know, if you want to go drive around in sandy craziness and have some fun in it, I can see that the PreRunner might be your jam. That could be for you. Now, inside the PreRunner, you get most of the normal Tacoma stuff, and I've gone over the Tacoma multiple times in detail, so I'm not going to get into it too much here, but I did notice a couple things on this particular PreRunner. You get the fully digital gauge cluster on this PreRunner, even though you only have the 8-inch infotainment screen. So that's nice, I think. It gives you, like, you know, one nice option, even though you don't have the other. They don't always have to come together. You also have your drive modes down here, and that's where you have your rear locker. So that's kind of a nice addition as well. I like that this has the extended cab, which has some cubbies and storage behind the seats. So if you don't need that kind of four-door quad cab configuration, this is really useful. The way I sort of put this, and I put this in some of the TikToks that I made, was the PreRunner reminds me of, like, you appreciate the SR, the SR5, but you want certain options all packaged together, right? You want some looks, you want some capability, you want some cars driving by, but you want a couple things kind of packaged into one, you know, cohesive vehicle with a little bit more style. It's not unlike the Tacoma Trail Edition from the previous gen, right? Where you had that sort of TRD look in a regular off-road SR5 Tacoma, which I actually liked. I really liked the Tacoma Trail quite a bit. Why don't they bring it back? Anyway, but I sort of understand the PreRunner a little bit better now. I took it down to the beach and it felt like this is the kind of like perfect beach truck, if that makes sense. So should you buy a Toyota Tacoma PreRunner? Well, that's an interesting question because the PreRunner feels like it's for a very specific type of buyer. Now, out here in the hills of California, it sort of feels appropriate. This actually kind of feels like where the PreRunner should be, in this sort of more Baja mountain hills environment, in dirt, but not doing crazy off-roading. It sort of makes sense here. Like I said, taking it down to the beach felt right. It sort of felt like this is where the PreRunner belongs. I don't know. I kind of feel like the PreRunner makes sense in California. Now, back home in Georgia, where I'm from, does the PreRunner make as much sense? I don't know. I don't know if people would want something like the PreRunner in Georgia. They might either just rather have the TRD Sport or something like the TRD Off-Road. If it's me, I'm taking that freaking Trailhunter, no doubt about it. I like the TRD Pro, but I think I'd rather have the Trailhunter just because it's insane looking. It's just absolutely insane looking. So I would be curious to know in the comments what you guys think. Let me know, would you take a PreRunner? Does this sort of set of options appeal to you? Do you find it interesting? And, you know, let me know what you think of the way it looks as well. And, you know, until then, like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Sorry for the low-tech video. I'm trying to do the best I can. I'm about to get rained on again. So I'll see you in the next one.